Hey everybody, it's Eric from What If Geeks. Today we're going to try our hand at kit bashing. You might have heard me mention on the podcast that I saw some Kitbash Galaxy's Edge phone cases and I really wanted to make them. Well, you know I had to make a couple and I recorded myself doing it, so we can do a bit of a tutorial. So stay tuned for that. So first things first, I just want to go over the supplies real quick. So on the bottom left here, you have styrene sheets. This is like a rigid plastic. It's really easy to cut and it's great for doing model building. So we'll use this for all the paneling and some of the details on the back of the phone. To the right of that, you have a model tank kit. You could use a model battleship kit, a Star Wars spaceship kit. Really anything would work here. You don't need a lot of pieces though. I think I might use maybe 10 at the absolute most. It's going to be mostly small pieces just to add detailing to the phone. The next thing is enamel paints you see here in the middle. I have mostly drab colors, grays and browns, black, maybe some olive drab. And then I have a couple pop colors because in any of the Star Wars stuff you'll notice the colors are mostly dull, but there's always a couple pops. They're usually red or blue, maybe green, maybe yellow, maybe purple. But the colors of lightsabers, basically. Those can be your pop colors. So I've got red and blue here. I'll probably use red for this design. Next over here we have E6000 adhesive. So I'm using this adhesive because it gives me about maybe 10 or 15 minutes of set time, so I can still move things around after I lay them down. Because I've never done this build before and I don't know exactly how it's going to go, I didn't want to use something that would set fast. But if you knew what you were doing, you could use like weld on number 3 and that would set the styrene and the plastic model pieces, in seconds. They would just be done. So if you really know what you're doing, use that. But for me, I don't, so I wanted to use something that didn't set quite so fast. Next one over is the phone cases, of course. I have 2 here. The black one I bought off $7 off Amazon. That's for my phone. And the one to the right of that is actually an old phone case, the junk piece, but it fits my son's phone, so I'm going to use that to make one for him. For what it's worth, both of these are the kind that have the like rubbery inside and then the hard case you can take off the back. I would recommend getting one like that if you could, because you don't really want to spray paint the inner rubber part or do anything to that. And if you can remove it, that makes life really easy and you don't have to tape anything off. So the next thing is the primers. I've got gray and brown here. I'll probably just use the gray. We'll see how I feel, but that's just for after all the pieces are on. We'll prime it and then I'll do all the detail painting with the enamel paints. Next over is X-Acto knife kit. I won't use all the blades on here. You really just need a couple for cutting the styrene and cutting the plastic model pieces off. That's really it. Next over from that, I've got some toothpicks and some barbecue skewers, bamboo ones. So really, I just thought these might work good to make little like things that look like conduits or wires or whatever. So I might cut a few pieces up and put it on the back. We'll see how it goes. That's pretty much it though. That's all the supplies we need. So first thing I wanted to do was sketch out my design. You can of course skip this step, but I just traced around the case to try to give myself a general idea of where things would go. I did a lot of paneling and angled corners and stuff because I thought that was sort of Star Wars-y, and I tried to make everything look a little layered. And this really started off generic, not actually Boba Fett, but Boba Fett's where it turned out when I started building, so it is what it is. But anyway, you'll see I deviate a lot from this original design. I deviate a lot from it once I go through the build. So before we get started on the time lapse of the build, I just want to show you quickly how easy it is to work with these styrene sheets. So over here you have the drawing I did, the sketch I did for this one. Styrene is going to be used for basically all the paneling. These big ones here on the bottom and the center, as well as the smaller ones you see inside there. It's all going to be done with styrene, different thicknesses. I have 3 different thicknesses. I'm just going to show you the one here. I think this is 020. It's one of the easiest ones to cut and work with. Thicker ones takes a little more scoring, but the process is basically the same. So I just line this thing up to the thickness I want. In this case, I'm going to do the bottom panel first, and that panel is give or take like 1.5 inches tall. So I'll just measure out 1.5 inches here, And then I'll use an X-Acto knife to score across the edge of it. You only have to score it for this thin sheets, these 020s, maybe 2 or 3 times at most. Get this lined up right. Okay, so 2 scores across here, and then you'll see when I pick this up, I mean, it's just ready to snap right apart. It's easy, super clean. So basically, same exact process. Now I got to set the width to where I want it, right? So this panel needs to be the right width to fit on the back of the case and to go around this little hole that's in the bottom of the case that I have. So I'll just dry fit on the back here and make sure I don't cut it too big. I'm just going to put a little notch on the bottom, just right where I want to cut it. And then I'll come back with the ruler and mark it on both sides just to make sure I get a straight cut. In this case, you probably see me using centimeters. You know, I don't really care. I just use whatever is easier for the moment. So use whatever you want, but I just like the numbers to be round. I don't want to remember like, you know, 9/16 of an inch or whatever. Whatever is simpler for me, and I just kind of round off to the nearest. So anyway, yeah, so we're marking 7 centimeters on this one. So I'm going to mark both sides. You can mark it with a pencil or with your X-Acto knife. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you. I'll use the smaller one in this case to score this a couple times right along those lines I made. So just like before, you'll see, I'm going to do a couple scores on this thing. 1, 2, we'll do 3. Okay, and then that thing will snap right off nice and clean. And so now the next thing I want to do is, of course, the corners. So we got 4 corners on here that are sort of angled. That's very, you know, Star Wars themed to do the angled corners. So what I'll do is I'll just measure each corner from the edge, you know, maybe 1/2 centimeter in, to turn it 45 degrees there, or 90 degrees, not 45, and mark it again. And so that'll give us a perfect 45 angle. If you measure the exact same distance for both sides, you get a perfect 45. So I'm doing that from the corner both ways, 1/2 centimeter. Now I'm just going to use the X-Acto knife to pop those pieces off. Just downward pressure. I don't even really have to slice. Now we have our wonderful corners. So that's it. I mean, it's really that simple to work with the styrene. I'll fast forward here and show you in a time lapse how I do the notch part that's got to fit over this hole. But I mean, it's basically the exact same process. I'm just going to score a line a little deeper into the panel. And then once I've got that line scored at the edges, I'll cut all the way through at a 45-degree angle. And then you'll be able to snap that piece right off, and I'll have that notch that I want that fits over the hole. So I'll time lapse forward and show you that real quick. And then that's really it. We'll move on to the build from there. So we're on to the moment you've all been waiting for, the build phase. So basically what I did here was I just used my drawing as a reference point. I cut out some of those base panel pieces, right? And I laid them on here. And I'm dry fitting everything here. Nothing is glued yet because I wanted to make sure it all looked good together before I glued anything down. Again, I've never done this before. It's a first time design, so I just had to roll with it and see what it looked like. So you'll see I grabbed some parts out of the tank kit here, some wheels mostly to look like little camera lenses or something, and I grabbed a piece of the track to make it like a heat sink, I guess, at the bottom there. I grabbed some other little pieces to be connectors and things. I mean, whatever you feel like, right? And you don't have to have a tank kit for this. You don't even have to have a model kit at all. You can find things around your house that might work. Any kind of little pieces of plastic or whatever. I mean, they could be out of anything. Nylon washers, maybe you got something in a little hardware kit for hanging pictures. I mean, who knows? It could be anything. And it really doesn't matter. The idea here is to just give this thing sort of almost an excessive amount of detail. And again, you just don't want large flat surfaces, right? You want to break everything up. So as I was building along here, I realized pretty quickly that having that bottom, middle, and top panel it felt too segmented. And in order to make it feel less segmented, I cut some extra little pieces, which I put between them to make them sort of look like the panels were connected. And so I did it on more than one layer. So I did it on the bottom layer, but then I did something smaller on the top layer. So it makes it look like the bottom and the middle and the top are all going to be, connected together. Like they have different functions maybe, but they're all interconnected somehow. And then I found that rangefinder piece at the top there in the model kit, and it wasn't really intended to be Boba Fett in the beginning, but as soon as I saw that piece, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's rangefinder. It can't be anything else. And so I put it on in this little antenna stick, which is just made out of the barbecue skewers. I just cut the ends off, and I sliced them in half so they'd sit flat on the back of the case. That's that really drove everything. From this point on, I realized, oh crap, it has to be Boba Fett. Nothing else I could do. So I also grabbed, it wasn't in my supplies list, but I grabbed a Cat 5e cable. That's the cable you use to connect your computer to a router or whatever, the hardwire internet. I grabbed one of those and I slid it open, and inside there's 8 little skinny wires, and I used a couple of those wires as detailing on the back. And then I used the actual connector piece, the corrugated part of it ended up being the base for my antenna, which you can't see yet, but you'll see in a minute when it gets to that point. So, that's really it. I just kind of gluing things on in layers and trying to make it feel like it has some depth, and I think probably 3 or 4 layers is plenty. That's enough to give it the depth that it needs. So I'll let you guys watch this thing play out with this music in the background. Hope you enjoy it. So here you have the end result of the build before we do any painting. You can see here I deviated a lot from the original, as I told you I did. But it still felt good. And I know this looks a little weird how it is, but I promise you, once you prime it, everything will change. So here you can see it with 2 coats of gray primer, and hopefully you can tell what I'm talking about when I say it really brings everything together. Once you prime it, all those different colors are gone. Now, truthfully, you could just be done at this point. If you really don't want to detail paint, you could do a little wash on this or spray a little black or brown paint on it and be done with it, and that's it, and you're finished. You don't have to go through the detail. I'm gonna do that, and before I do that, I'm gonna just squirt this gray with just a tiny bit of brown, like some really quick fast squirts, just to like dirty and rough it up and make it look sort of old and funky and not having a solid clean color on it. Now we're at the last, or second to last, I guess, step. So this is the hand painting. Again, you do not have to do this. This looks pretty good, I think, anyway, without being painted at all, but up beyond just the primer and a little bit of dirtying. But it's up to you. And I've seen a couple done where there was no hand painting. I mean, this is another hour probably. I don't know how good of a painter you are. I'm not a very good one, but probably another hour put into the process if you're going to do multiple different colors and layers. So you don't have to do this, but I really wanted to make it look, well, fantastic, at least for me. So I went ahead and painted it. So what you can see me doing here is the lower layers, the ones that are just above the phone case. I'm painting those like a light gray color. Again, everything on my palette is drab except the splash colors, and I'm only going to use red in this one. So you'll see me painting a lot of light gray here, then I'll come back and I'll do a couple spots in black, some of the little lenses and things like that. I'll do all the little studs in black. And then what I'll do here is a technique called washing. You're going to watch this here. So I'll mix the black paint with water, maybe about 50-50. and I'll rub it over any of the things that have like a bunch of detail on them. So you see that's one coat there. Now I'm going to do a second one. Now this is specifically just for the parts that have a bunch of little holes and stuff, right? And so what this does is this gives you your depth back. When you paint it all a single color, you lose a lot of the depth, right? But if you wash over it with a little bit of black, and it's got to be a light color, don't thicken on there. That's not, it's black mixed with a bunch of water. So you do that, and it'll just sort of, the watery black will fall into all the crevices, and it'll just make those things pop out, right? Because they're so much darker, the light will hit them different. So it's just a really good technique to bring out detail. And to be honest, I washed it a little too soon, and I ended up doing it again at the end. I should have just waited and done it all at the end. But I mean, washing is probably the last thing you should do, or close to the last thing. So anyway, I'm using my splash color here. You can see I just painted a few little pieces red here and there. Boba Fett's helmet only has this little rim of red around it, so I didn't want to take it too far. Just little bits and pieces here and there. And then where anything that popped out at me, just like Boba Fett's armor, I did that darker green color. So that's it. And you know, I'm just working through here, painting things, and then at the very end, I am doing another wash right here to just bring out some of those details that I lost in the color painting. At the very end here, I'm going to use the nail file just to rough up the edges, the parts that would rub against a pocket or whatever, because Boba's armor has all these nicks and scratches in it, and I want the datapad case, the phone case, to have the exact same look. For the final step, I'm going to put 3 coats of the clear coat on top of this. So this will protect your enamel paint, and it'll keep things from rubbing off and whatever. It's really just to protect your work, to keep it all nice and together. It also gives it some water protection and some UV protection, but ultimately, I mean, it's really to protect the paint more than anything. So as you can see here, I waited until I completed both phone cases to do this, and I'm sorry I didn't get to show you the other one, but I felt like this video was probably long enough as it was. If you really want to see the R2 one, let me know. I'm happy to do another video. I did record the entire R2 process, same as this one, but I didn't want to burden you with that. I felt like 15 minutes was a long enough video. So anyway, last thing we'll do is a top coat here, and then I'll show you the result. So here is the final result. I am ecstatic about how this turned out. The R2 was almost as good, I think. Again, if you want to see that one, I'll show you in a different video, but I really love the way this turned out. It feels great. It handles well. It's still easy to hold, and I'd say the only downside is you have to be gentle putting it in your pocket, not because of any of the back stuff, but because of the freaking rangefinder. So the R2 is advantageous in that sense, because I can just stick it right in my pocket, and there's no worries at all. But this one got a little extra. But anyway, I'm totally ecstatic about how it turned out. So my son and I will both take these to Galaxy's Edge next time we're there doing the datapad game. So if you have any questions, you can comment in this post or on the YouTube video, or you can hit us up on whatifgeek.com or on our Facebook or our Twitter at whatifgeeks. Thanks for watching.